Hi, readers. Welcome back to another week after our break. Hope you had a safe and healthy break along with your families, taking out some nice family time and just taking a rest for the week and just keeping everybody safe and healthy. I'm glad to be back and I'm glad to be talking to you guys this week. A little bit more about social issues in literature, as well as maybe exploring some writing and looking at a different side of social issues through another lens. We're going to be using poetry this week. And I actually pulled a very old poem that I thought would be kind of fun and a little different to the normal things that we're used to in short stories. So today's objective is readers gain a deeper understanding of how social issues play an essential role in literature. So we can look at that as we've been looking at roles in the current stories we've been reading. We've been looking at moms and dads roles versus children and friends roles, how they differentiate and how they're different, and how some people take on different power roles and stereotypes as opposed to other characters we have read. So I've pulled a poem. It's called The Canterbury Tales. It's actually, if you look up here, it says it was a book. It's actually a very, very, very long poem made up of different tales. It was written by Geoffrey Chaucer around the 1400s in the Middle Ages. It's actually an Old English poem. As you can see on the left, this is the Old English poem the way it looks, and on the right this is kind of the translated version from Old English words to modern English words. So I'm going to read you the prologue. It's actually the beginning of the Canterbury Tales. It's the setup of how Geoffrey Chaucer, who is the narrator, by the way, he sets up this poem as a way to explain lower class versus middle class versus the upper class in the Middle Ages. So it's really important to look back into literature at older works to understand how social issues play such an important role in literature that we read today. So I'm going to read it to you. Again, reminding you it's in Old English. Translated to modern English, it's going to be a little difficult. I'm going to read it slowly and stop and ask to see if we can notice maybe the author's tone, or maybe how Geoffrey Chaucer, who is the narrator, see how he presents the setting, and maybe we can figure out the purpose in this prologue to see maybe, what was his intentions? Why did he write it? Let's just see if we can go through this, read aloud of the prologue to see if we can pay attention to tone, setting, and the author's intentions. Okay, so here we go. When April, with his showers sweet with fruit, the drought of March had pierced unto the root, the bathed in vain with liquor that has power to generate therein the stir of flowers. When Zephyr also has with his sweet breath quickened against in every holt and heath the tender shoots of buds, and the young sun unto the ram one half his forth has run, and many little birds mark melody that sleep through all night with open eye. So nature pricks them onto ramp and rage. Then do folk long to go on pilgrimages. Palmers to go seeking out strange strands to distant shrines well known in sundry lands, and specially for every shire's end of England they to Canterbury wend. The the holy blessed martyr there to seek, who helped them when they lay so ill and weal. So I'm going to stop there. There was a lot of talk and some words we can pull out, like bud, like flower, like sweet. That all gives me a kind of the idea of the tone being that it's, and they also give out dates too. It would give me the idea that it's, late March, early April. So we think about the time of year, we think about the season. So it's the season of spring. It brings out, happiness. It brings out new beginnings. It brings out the flowers and the birds. So Chaucer's just describing through his writing, um, it's very romantic language of spring. It's very imaginatory language of spring. So this is the time, this is the setting, it's spring. And you can see how he pulls those words to give us the idea. He talks about birds, he talks about flowers, he talks about the buds in the trees. So, and the zephyr is actually a flower. It's a purple flower that grows in spring. It's one of the first flowers that comes out. So you can tell that he's setting up for a new beginning. Spring's coming. Maybe something is about to happen. So if you look at the end, they talk about pilgrimage. All then do folk long to go on a pilgrimage. So folk meaning people. The word folk means people. So if you're, like folks, like you would say like some folks, that would be like an old way of saying people. So, usually when the weather gets nice, what do people normally like to do? They like to go out, they like to go to the park, they like to go on maybe little like vacations, weekends, getaways and stuff like that. So he's talking about spring happening and that people wanting to go on some kind of a journey. A pilgrimage means it's kind of a journey they want to go on. So let's see what this journey is going to entail or where they're going to go. Befell that in that season on a day in Southwark at the Tabard, I as lay ready to start upon my pilgrimage to Canterbury, full of devout homage, there came at nightfall to the hostelry some 29 in company. So we can tell that there's about 29 people coming to this tabard. And they're talking about going somewhere. Let's see where they want to go. Of sundry persons who had chances to fall in fellowship and pilgrims were they all, that towards Canterbury town would ride. The rooms and the stables spacious were and wide. As well we there were eased at all the best, and briefly when the sun had gone to rest, so I spoken with them, everyone, that I was their fellowship a nun. So that means he would like to go too. They're talking about traveling to Canterbury to see something. I don't think they mentioned it yet, but they're on their way to see a shrine because they worship something and they want to go see it. They're making a journey to Canterbury to see a shrine of a saint that is very special to them in their religion, because in the Middle Ages, religion was very important. And made an agreement that we'd early rise to take the road, as you I will apprise. But none the less, whilst I have time to and space, before yet farther in this tale I pace, it seems to me accordance with reason to inform you of the state of every one of all of these, as it appears to me, and who they were, and what their degree, and how arrayed in how arrayed there in the inn, and with the night, thus will I first begin. So in the bottom four or five lines, I'm trying to find the part. Their agreements. The last three lines, I'm going to read them one more. The last four lines, I'm going to read them one more time, because that is the part that I get a sense that they're talking about a social issue, that they're putting people in their class ranges. They said that he's describing, no matter who you are, you're welcome to go with them on their journey. And I'll read it again. So it's the last four lines where everyone's in agreement, and they are to begin this journey to go to Canterbury. Of all of these, as it appears to me, and who they were, and what was their degree, and even how arrayed they're at the inn, with the night thus will I first begin. So then he is going to start to talk about every character or every person that is going on this journey. So there is 29 people going on this journey, and each of them has a story, and they all tell a story. But he first picks the knight, who is of the highest. Now, a knight, when you think of a knight back in the Middle Ages, they were very noble. They had a lot of courage. People thought of them very highly. So, of course, the narrator, Chaucer, is saying, well, I'm going to pick the knight first to tell the first tale, because he is the most courageous. He is the most noble, and being courageous and noble back then in the Middle Ages was thought to be, you had very good morality, which means they thought of you very highly. So he appoints the knight to tell the first story. Now, one more thing about the Canterbury Tales is that it's a very famous work, and Geoffrey Chaucer, who wrote this, he wrote different stories about different people, and he put them all together. And when you look at it collectively all together, you realize that there's a class system within it. So being that the knight starts off first, then he talks about other people, merchants, he talks about a miller, he talks about a servant. They all have different stories, but they're all in a class system, which is why we look at this work and readers get a deeper understanding of how social issues play essential roles in literature, because you can see that there's a social class system that has been started long time ago in these old works, and in the modern stories we read today. So with that being said, we looked at tone, we looked at setting, and we looked at the author's purpose in writing the prologue. So I'd like you guys to go back to the post, look at the questions, and come to Zoom for a discussion of the poem. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in Zoom.